Dear students, have a good day. And I'm pleased and happy to back again with a new subject for the second term for the first year um, College of Pharmacy at Mustansiriya University. And the subject that I will teach you is human histology. My colleagues, Assistant Prof. Dr. Fatua and Senior Lecturer Dr. Mesa. And But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Makarim Al-Zubaydi, and my lecture for today is Histology of Connective Tissue. So before I go ahead to thoroughly to each slide of histology of connective tissue, I have some rules, and I think if you follow these rules, that give you a good and a better understanding of the human histology, and also you have a good mark at the end of the term. So the first things is you must have paper or copybook or whatever, so you need to write some notes. Basically, that's all the information I put in the management in the each slide, but I will mention some information maybe you didn't find in each slide. So you need to have a paper and write some note. This is the first one. The second one is literaturely. My lectures it's from different sources. I will normally I didn't follow one source. So if you have one of these sources, that is good. And like Atlas of Histology with Factional Correlations by Victor B. Irochenko, and also textbook of a human histology with color atlas and practical guide for K. Pashpalatha, and also human histology for Stevenson Lewis. All right. So and my PowerPoint for histology of connective tissue, I will go to contents by introduction. I will mention like overview, and then classification of connective tissue, and factions, components, and types of connective tissue. So, um, and I would also mention that previously in the first term we already covered human biology, and I remember very well that I taught all of you about the connective tissue. It's taken from 2 to 3 labs, but here I will give some refresh information about connective tissue. So what does that mean? Cells to tissue, or then from the tissue we have four types, mainly four types of tissue: epithelium tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and nervous tissue. So let me start by cells to tissue. We know very well the human body developed from single to multicellular cells. And why it is cell? Because cell it is the basic structural, functional unit of the living organism. And then that if I have a group of similar structures working together to perform a shared function, and then we call this as group of cells as tissue. Then that's the structure made of a group of tissue, and we have organ. Um, جميع الأنسجة التي تغطي جسم الإنسان: النسيج الطلائي، النسيج الرابط، النسيج العضلي، النسيج العصبي. جميع هذه الأنسجة تبدأ بمصطلح الخلية التي تكون أصغر وحدة تركيبية ووظيفية داخل جسم الإنسان. وعندما تكون مجموعة من هذه الخلايا تكون متشابهة، ينتقل المصطلح من خلية إلى نسيج. and وإذا كان هذا النسيج يؤدي إلى وظيفة واحدة تسمى ذات العضو. Overview of connective tissue. It's the most abundant, widespread of tissue in the whole the body of a human. And also the major constituent is extracellular matrix, composed of fibers, ground substance, and tissue fluid. And all of this is ended or pathed with an extracellular matrix and in our connective tissue cells. Structurally, connective tissue is made divided into three classes: cells, fibers, and ground substance. الملاحظات العامة أو كمقدمة على النسيج الرابط هو أكثر أنواع الأنسجة انتشارا في جسم الإنسان، يكون متكون من الخلية والألياف والمادة الأساسية. And then we go to classification. Well, because connective tissue is made of many elements, not just a single element. So the classification is based on composition and organization of cellular, and also to the composition and organization of extracellular compound, and also for the exactly or the special functions. So I have like two slides for a classification of connective tissue. You can use like just mentions as this slide, or you have a schedule at the end of the PowerPoint. So why I have two slides for one classification, just to give you a refresher from the previously human biology course that we already mentioned and covered each part of of the schedules of element of connective tissue. So classified into three main subjects. It's connective tissue proper, it's loose connective tissue, and dense connective tissue. And then that we have subclassification, regular and irregular. And then that we have special properties with the second type of connective tissue. It's like a adipose connective tissue, elastic and hematopoietic, lymphatic and myeloid and mucous connective tissue. The third one is supporting connective tissue, which is cartilage and bone. And composition of connective tissues, as I mentioned, it's from cell and fibers. But please, student, let me give you a note. It's very essential when you write the composition of connective tissue, write like this: connective tissue cells, connective tissue fibers, intracellular or ground substance, and also blood vessels except the mucus and cartilage that haven't blood vessels. You must mention connective tissue when you write cells, and also connective tissue when you write fibers. Then that the functions of connective tissue. This is a slide is very important and essentially to understand the mechanism or the composition of systematic. You know very well that in the future we're going to have systematic. I mean, we will cover reproduction system, respiratory system, digestive system. So if you didn't understand exactly what the connective tissue work or the job for each is, it's very difficult to understand the mechanism of systematic. So let me start by support. It's like to epithelium, and an example of the support is lamina propria. Let me give you define about lamina propria. It's like a thin layer loose areolar connective tissue which it is lies or found is beneath of epithelium. And when I have epithelium with the with a basement membrane and then constitutes what called the mucosa. The second function is strength, is give provided the tensile strength as a mechanical stress. And example for ligament, we know that the main function for ligament is bind and connect bone to bone. And then we have the storage. The storage function is either for a depose the tissue as the fat cells when storage the droplet of oil, or as the bone when storage for the calcium and phosphate substances. And then we have transport. Transport we know very well for the blood is um, it's type of connective tissue. So it's mainly function to transport maybe nutrients, waste, gases, oxygen, and between various tissues on the bloody and various tissue during the human body. Backing, they will fill space like loose connective tissue and adipose tissue. And a repair, it's like help to wound healing, especially when we have accidents and injured, that it's repair and healing. And for defense is no more than about immunity system. We know that connective tissue, one essential element of connective tissue is cells, and these cells have role to defense and also as a defense action and also for immunity. For example, plasma cells, macrophages, lymphocytes, monocytes, and eosinophils. And then we have connective tissue cells. I have two terms, and I will cover it like fixed or permanent and wandering cells. And permanent connective tissue الخلايا الثابتة أو الخلايا التي تكون متواجدة داخل النسيج as a native um, ثابتة. It's undifferentiation mesenchymal cells and like a fibroblast for protection of fibers and macrophages for rule in the immunity system and fat cells. While wandering cells عبارة عن الخلايا المتحركة التي تنتقل من مكان إلى آخر وممكن أن تثبت في جزء داخل جسم الإنسان. So it is immigrant cells are usually from blood to bone marrow, also its characteristic and may take up permanent residence there. For example, smart cells, plasma cells, pigment cells, and blood leukocytes. And undifferentiated mesenchymal cell. Um, the, um, we know that the precursor of most of indigenous of connective tissues, including the fibroblast and adipose cells. تكون طبقة الميزنكايمال سيلز هي الطبقة البادئة أو الناشئة الأول للconnective tissue, special for fibroblast and adipose cells. And then we have three types. Adventitial cells. This type of cells is remain and keep undifferentiated to adult cells or adult connective tissue, and also is constituent to reserve in the population of stem cell. تكون غير قادرة على undifferentiated تمايز إلى الادult connective tissue وتبقى محافظة على الكاركتر stem cells. Perivascular cells is located along with the walls of blood vessels, and we cannot uh, um, easy to recognition or easy to distinguish what is exactly. But from numerous to different observation, we can respond when we have certain stimuli. And then that we have the third one for undifferentiated mesenchymal cells is the pluripotential cells. This type of the cells have ability to differentiate into either any type of the cell or it goes into group of the cells like a smooth muscle cells. And let's go to types of connective tissue. We have two types. Either mesenchymal connective tissue, which like dominant in embryo and in fetus, and it is development have ability to differentiate it into smooth muscle, vascular, lymphatic channels, and all types. A good example for this is cementum and dentin and the pulp of teeth. All of this like structure of the teeth. or it is the mucous connective tissue. It's like the second stage, or it is intermediate stage between mesenchyme and differentiated adult tissue. Good example for mucous connective tissue is umbilical cord. It's also called Wotton's jelly. And before I go to explain the mainly two type of connective tissue is embryonal connective tissue and adult connective tissue. Let me give you what the early criteria that's followed to divide it to two, to embryonal and adult. Is number one, it depends on the relative proportion of the various fibers present. تعتمد على النسبة الطردية والعكسية لوجود الفibers, and also compactance and arrangement of these fibers, طريقة ترتيب الفibers, and also nature of the matrix, طبيعة الماتريكس, and also the types of the cells present ونوعية الخلايا الموجودة. And then, according to these four criteria, we have embryonal embryonal connective tissue, and adult connective tissue. Now we go to embryonal connective tissue. Developmentally, that's derived from mesoderm, and we know mesoderm is one layer of the primary embryonic layers. And I wrote here note in white color just to explain what does that mean we have three primary embryonic layer. I will start to explain from center to outer. So from center we start by endoderm, which is most proximal layer, and then that we have the middle layer, it is mesoderm, and then the most exterior or outer layer is called ectoderm. And then that is the immature connective tissue of embryo. It's derived from mesenchyme, and it is the main character for mesenchyme cell. It's like a star. It's roughly star-shaped cells, and it is an abundant, relatively homogeneous intracellular substance. تكون الطبقة الثانية أو الميزنكايما تكون تحتوي على خلايا نجمية الشكل and في تكون أحد مكونات المادة الأساسية. And as the development, when continue to development as they proceed, the mesenchymal gradually converted to adult connective tissue. So what we have, then we will see that the first changes is appearance of fibers, and it's like intracellular substance that becomes more viscous, and then that the embryonic connective tissue at this stage is known as the mucous tissue. A good example for this is umbilical cord, which is a high amount of mucous tissue. Then that we have adult connective tissue. It's no more than three types. It's uh, connective tissue proper, which is two types, either dense connective tissue, as we see in the first on the first slide, as the dense connective tissue or loose connective tissue, and then cartilage and bone. Um, Now we go to thoroughly to characteristics of connective tissue. Here is very important to know what the character gives to a special criteria for connective tissue. It's more matrix than cells. يحتوي على المادة الأساسية أكثر من السيلز. Um, derived derived from mesoderm in embryo and mesenchyme and the mucous connective tissue. It's vascular and also can replicate because it have ability to wound healing and repair, and not to present on the free surface or body cavity. What does that mean? They're not present on the free surface. We know very well it is like a cushion, and or it's cushion organs, and it's underlaid of epithelium tissue. It's not like on surface. And innervated, that means supported for nervous tissue also. Now we go to components of connective tissue. As I mentioned previously, it's from cells and protein fibers and ground substance. But here I go in details. If I say the protein fibers and ground substance together, I can give one name, extracellular matrix. All right, and the composition and the structure of the extracellular matrix, I mean um, protein fibers with the ground substance, it gives the characters of the connective tissue. And we know connective tissue have many cells: fibroblast, macrophages, plasma cells, mast cells, adipocytes, osteocytes, chondrocytes, leukocytes, and erythrocytes. All of these cells, I just I remember very well. I covered all of these cells in human biology. So what I did here in human histology, I put all of the cells in the tables, and I give you save your time and make it clear. Essentially, to know these columns in in this table is very essential. For example, you need to know the cell type or and where is that location exactly and what is its function. So I collect all of them and put in this table. And these tables is essential to know and to understanding this table and also this table. Monocyte, macrophage, Hoover cell, and microglia cell, Langerhans, osteoclast, the nuclear giant cells. Now we go through to extracellular matrix. As I said, it is two types. It's from proteins, fibers, and the ground substance. Then how I can define ground substance? Ground substance is component of connective tissue between the cells and fibers. And ground substance may be different texture. It's either viscous, like the blood, or it is semi-solid, as in cartilage, or to salt, as in bone. And the function of it is the ground substance is a support cell binding all of together, and also stores water and provide medium for exchange substances between the blood and cells, and also play roles in differentiated and the change shape for connective tissue. And primarily that consists of a protein and carbohydrate. But in general, we have two proteins, either proteoglycans and glycoproteins. Here I use like a simple and clear equation. If it is a proteoglycan, that means come from a protein core, and a glycose, I mean a glycan, and also glycoproteins, they come from a protein plus oligosaccharides. We still have the one mainly fraction for the ground substances, adhesion of proteins, and responsible to linkage all the components like cells and cells with fibers and also fibers with fibers. It's like adhesion fraction. And for protein fibers, I mean for collagen fibers, elastic fibers, and reticular fibers, also this two slides just to give you knowledge because you already know it, that each of them, and you have information from human biology. You already you see these fibers under the microscope, and you have quite good information. I put the slide here just to give you idea. And this is the classification. If you think this one is clearer than the other one, like just mentioned, you can depend it. Which one is you think is good? You can use it just to give you refresh information from the previous human biology course. And then that I make a comparison between types of connective tissue. It goes to regular and irregular. The main functions for each of them, for example, dense regular have less amount of cells with high amount of fibers, and that I give example the tendons and ligament. We know the main job for tendons is the uh, connect or bind muscle with bone, while the irregular is too much fibers and blood cells and like submucosa of intestinal tract system. And then also loose connective tissue, I give some character just to remember the loose connective tissue from previously. So for this slide, my lectures for histology of connective tissue is finished. Now we'll go to thoroughly from the first slide. I will give you a guide how it is important to read and how you have like map what you read is important and sure it's like starts for the slide. So um, um, it's good if you have if asked about connective tissue. I think simple define for connective tissue. Give me introduction or overview. This is enough as a define for connective tissue. Classification. If it is based on composition and organization of the cellular and extracellular, then you give me this type of classification. I mean the three types. But if I ask about depend on four criteria, that means you give me two, embryonal and adult. Function of connective tissue. This is a slide is very essential. Without this slide, you cannot understand the systematic in the future we will cover. All right, and the two type mesenchymal connective tissue and the mucous connective tissue. Essential to know example for each of one. Now, I mean, if I ask about the classification based on four criteria, you need to give me embryonal and adult. And if it is in general, just that as three types. I mean, the connective tissue proper, connective tissue specialized, and the connective tissue. Um, I mean, this one, and supporting. Okay, proper and specialized and supporting. All right, and a characteristic of connective tissue, it's important to know, and also um, for component of connective tissue, if it is a protein, fibers, and ground substance, and as if I ask about what the term is meaning, extracellular matrix, so you need to explain this is a protein, fibers, and ground substance, and and you must mention this equation is very important because when I say that protein, that means protein and carbohydrates. So give me this equation. Back to these cells. These cells as fibroblasts like this, macrophages, and all this. For me, it's just for knowledge. But this table, I think it's two tables, is very essential. It's very important. So please, the cell type with the location with the function depend on these tables. And for fibers, this is just for knowledge. Collagen fibers, elastic fibers, reticular fibers, all for you have knowledge. This comparison for dense connective tissue is important and defined for loose connective tissue. You can mention all of these characters. All right. This lecture, I hope I can download it in Google Classroom, and and I